G'day everyone, we are now on to part 3 of the new Sprintcar build, and today I'm going to get some smaller things done. I'm going to start off with getting the shock studs bolted in, how I do it, simple things, you know, just teaching people what it's like to build a Sprintcar. And basically I'm going to start off with that, and then I'm just going to work my way up, figure out what I'm going to do next, and that's pretty much it. As you can see, I've already got my shock studs sitting in here, and the XXXs actually run this spacer in front or in between the shock stud and the shock tower on the chassis, just to space the shock further out a little bit. I'm not exactly sure why, but I've basically just got it sitting in there. This one's just over 4 inches long, and basically what I like to do with these shock studs is pretty much get a bit of Loctite on the end, and then just get them in as tight as I can. See, what I'll do now is I'll grab my blue mid-strength Loctite and my shock stud. Basically what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of Loctite towards the end of the thread. Spread out. That's probably just a little bit too much, more than I wanted. But anyway, that's okay. And now I'll just get in there, get up till it's tight on the nylock, and I'll grab my 3/4 inch wrench, because these top line titanium shock studs have a 3/4 inch hex on them. And then basically just tighten them up. That hurt a lot. Ouch. That hurt a lot. Ouch. Now that is in there tight, all good to go, and now I am in immense pain with my finger. Now, the reason there's 2 different holes in these XXX shock towers is so you can use different length shaft and body shocks, and pretty much change how much shock travel you get, or to use different length shocks. Now I've got the bell housing all sat in the car with our 4 top line titanium bolts mounted to the motor plate, and basically what happens is the uni sits here from the motor, it's bolted to the block, and that'll just hold the drive line, and basically all this runs through a torque tube and the torque ball housing, and basically just to protect not only your legs but also the drive line while you're racing, so it's not out in the open like what a normal car would be. It has a great big aluminium cylinder that goes around the driveline, which is what we call the torque tube. So basically what I'll get done now is I'll get the steering box installed, the XXX steering box clamp, and the half box bracket mount, just so everything's nice and prepared and ready to go. This right here is what a XXX top steering mount looks like. So this is pretty much what angles, what way your steering box is going to sit, and you can also move it back and forth with these adjustable holes that XXX give you as an option. And these threads here on the side are little pieces that you mount your L brackets to for your fuel tab. Now before I get the steering box installed, as you can see over here where the side of the shaft comes out with the spline for the steering box is actually still blocked off by the dash. So what I've got to do is I've got to get that marked up, and then I'll have to cut a rough estimate of where I think that the steering box shaft will come out so it looks nice and clean. Now that I've got it all sorted, I can get the holes for I can get the steering bracket mount mocked up. And in my XXX, we basically run the mount in the 3rd hole. So the holes change the height. Just got to take these bolts out. So just like this, right in the 3rd hole. And we sit this piece of the clamp over, tighten up the bolt, and as you can see, these holes pretty much just bring it back, the steering box back and forth. It's all a driver thing on where the driver wants it. And now I will get one of the other clamps hooked up as well. And as you can see, the bolts go in through the bottom, so they clamp in at the top, or the threads are in the top, sorry. Now I will adjust all this when my uncle gets here. He's coming over this weekend and he'll decide where he actually wants the steering box and everything to sit, as it pretty much decides where your steering wheel is going to sit, and that is all just driver preference. So the most important thing is that your driver is comfortable, because an uncomfortable driver makes for an uncomfortable race car, which makes for an uncomfortable team, which makes for uncomfortable races. Now, as you can see here, I've got the steering box that's going in the car, which is the same one that we've used in my uncle's car for the past couple of seasons, and we're reusing it because steering boxes are very expensive nowadays, and it doesn't seem right to get rid of this, because it's a Gen 2 steering box, it's a half box, and there is really no problem with it, so we are going to reuse it. But what I just realized, and I'll show you, is with this, it's quite an old half box bracket, and we were switching to this new, fresher black one, and this half box bracket here, it's a DMI one. It actually doesn't have the slots to come off the steering box like this one does. You'll see this one here's got these 3 cutouts to go on these spokes here, and basically the bracket goes on and twists behind those spokes, so then you can rotate the steering box while it's still sitting in the car if you need to for the driver, etc., etc. But this actually doesn't have anything, so it can slide straight on and off. And what I noticed is that inside this silver piece here, there is actually a circlip. So what we're going to have to do is take that circlip out and hope it brings these 3 spokes out, so then I can then put this nice black half box bracket in the car. There we go. That did actually pull that piece out, which means I can now pull this half box bracket out and then slip that back in. Should just slide on just like let's go. There we go. Perfect. Now, we've done a fair bit on the car now. Got a front wing on, just sitting on the car. And I actually had to change steering boxes in the car because we bought another black Gen 2 series KSE box during the period after I installed the other one. So now I've actually got a black box just sitting in the car. One of the other things I've got to do to get some things sorted for the sprint car is get the Tachometer and MSD mounted to this plate that suits the XXX chassis. So basically the Tachometer sees through that hole there, which then you mount on the dash anywhere you like, just nice and flush like that. To do that, all I've got to do is take out these 4 screws that hold this front plate in and pretty much just put it in through there so the Tachometer sits under there just like so. So right now I've got my 1/8 Allen key and basically unscrewed all of these bolts out of this front plate on the Tachometer. Now what I'm going to do is sit the Tachometer on the plate just like this, and then line one of the screws up and get one lined up. And I'll get a second one lined up diagonally, so then the other 2 are perfectly lined up. Make sure to do it tight. And just like that, the tilt-tack is mounted to the XXX bracket. So now I've got my LS Series MSD box, because this car is going to start off with having the LS Sprintcar motor in it. And basically, as you can see here, the MSD box is quite a bit smaller than the standard one. And these holes here are for the standard bracket, just like this one. So I will have to make new holes for these screws. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is basically what an LS Series MSD box looks like. Pretty simple, otherwise the internals are quite advanced and I could not explain that.